Earlier this week, the Bernalillo County Commission held a hearing on the proposed Santa-Lena development southwest of Albuquerque. The commissioners rejected an appeal from opponents, but pushed back discussion on the proposed master plan to the end of this month. Now, each week we welcome community members to the table to talk about top news stories like this one. And I'm joined today by Daniel Foley, former New Mexico House Minority Whip. Julianne Grimm, editor of the Santa Fe Reporter, is back. Laura Sanchez-Rive taking notes from Sanchez Legal Solutions. That's what lawyers do. And Stephen Spitz, host of New Mexico People, Places, Ideas on KUNM. Stephen takes all of his notes ahead of time. It's okay. Laura, there was an interesting quote from Javier Benavides from Southwest Organizing Project. He's been here at this table on a part of the meeting that happened Monday night, saying there's not going to be any more public comment on this. The commissioners have heard enough from the public. In his view, the quote in the Journal was, he says they have shown their cards and there's a 3-2 vote in favor of this thing. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that they've, they're limiting the amount of public comment. What they've said is for this next meeting on the 28th, they're going to allow folks who have appealed, so those who have an actual standing in the appeal,
right,
to make a comment, to do a presentation, but they're not going to allow the additional public comment. I think that if you were watching the meeting, if you were following this along, you can definitely see that there are 3 commissioners that are in favor of moving forward with it, and 2 commissioners, Maggie Hart Stebbins and Debbie O'Malley, who are really concerned about the public's concern. Water, infrastructure, a lot of other issues that have come up. And it does appear that there's a 3-2 vote at this point. But again, it could be premature. We don't know what kind of dynamics there will be on that day, what kind of issues will come up. And I think this is one of those things that I expect will continue with a lot of protests, a lot of demonstrations, and a lot more I think, concern from citizens of the West Side if this does go forward.
Stephen Spitz, good to see you. And the idea of no more, I don't want to get hung up on this public comment thing, but this is a big deal. We're talking about 90,000 some people down the road. We're talking huge issues with water we're going to get to in a second. But should the public have some more say in this? This is a large deal we've got going here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it would be better if the public could have more of a say, although the interested parties are the ones that actually bring to bear the details. I mean, my view is it's sort of a desert mirage. You know, I mean, it's undeveloped desert. There's nothing to suggest it's going to happen anytime soon. If you look at the closest analogy, Mesa del Sol, they were supposed to have 37,000 homes. They've built 200. They've only sold 170. That's in a more centrally located area with infrastructure, with businesses.
Closer to the city.
Yeah, so, I think the likelihood, I mean, so you say, why is Santa-Lena doing it? Well, I mean, I think, as Laura says, I mean, it looks like a receptive audience. And, the county commission would like to get some more gross receipts tax revenue. So the developers say, let's go forward. Let's maybe sell off some of this. Let's get the plan approved. Let's get some water rights and see what might happen in the future.
There you go, Julianne Grimm, water rights. Let's get right to it. Interesting little wrinkle that's come out on Monday. There's an opinion that the county actually does not have the final say on how water should be used. It should be the Water Authority, in fact, which is made up of members of the county and the city and some others. Your sense of that, some folks who are saying that feels like a little bit of a move around the county's authority. What was your sense of that?
Well, you've got to let the people who are going to be providing the water make a decision about whether they can provide the water, especially with a project of this magnitude. It's not like adding one little building in a shopping mall. I mean, this is 22 square miles with homes for up to 90,000 people and some untold mystery number of businesses and services, which I think there's some significant doubt about whether that will materialize. So yeah, I think the water folks should be weighing in, and I think there should be some serious discussions as well about water conservation in this new community. The Santa Fe city and county governments both set usage requirements on new developments and say your new homes can only use, I think it's 2 acre-feet a year or something. It's similar to what the state engineer says. Haven't heard much of that about this, although I haven't poured through the files, so that might be there already.
Well, the idea of caps is out there, certainly, and it's an interesting thing to kind of consider. And Dan, good to see you as well. Given what Stephen said about our history with Mesa del Sol and other large projects out there, is this not at the bottom line just folly to try and put something out there, or Does this need
Well,
more?
I
in your
think
view?
there needs to be more discussion about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think anytime you start limiting the public, you're asking for a problem when you limit their input. But you also have to realize at some point you got to move on. I mean, sometimes public comment can be used to prevent the situation from moving.
Sure.
And it seems to me like the county commission is saying, okay, look, we had this time for everybody to make comments. Now we're going to start limiting it to the people that have input, because sometimes those people get run over by the folks that just want to come in and tell you what's going on.
Right.
You know, we have the Mesa del Sol example. What wasn't nearly as successful as we thought. Does that mean we tell the next people no? I'm not sure that I buy that, but what I do think
What should we tell them?
Well,
We've got
I
something
think-
on the record that has failed. If we want
Well-
to use a strong word, should something be said to somebody, as opposed to you can have everything you want?
Well, that's what I was going to get to was
Okay.
I don't think you just give them carte blanche.
Okay.
You start putting some clawbacks in. You start putting some things to say, look, we're going to do so much based on how many houses you sell, what you're doing, based on you know, whether we want green LEED certified homes in that area. We're going to do, you know, instead of we have a history in New Mexico, it's all or nothing. You know, hey, yeah, we're going to give it to you. You get everything up front, and then we wind up with these big plots of lands with roads and curbs and no homes.
Right.
And so at some point, I think maybe this could be a good test study that says, okay, we like your plan, but let's approve the overall plan. Say we're going to give you initial approval, but let's go phases, and let's kind of work on phase one and only do phase one and make sure we get everything right in phase one, versus, you know, kind of stuff we've had out in Rio Rancho where all of a sudden, you know, you got 8 miles of roads and you got a home and it takes 9 years with dirt blowing everywhere for a neighbor's home to be built.
That's
You know, so this could be a good test area
Yeah.
for us to say, look, we need to figure out how to do this correctly.
How does water fit into that, Laura Sanchez-Rivey? In that Dan's scenario makes sense. How does water planning fit into that?
I think it's a huge part of this. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the main concerns that the opponents have about this, and a lot of the West Side coalitions of neighborhood associations have also expressed concern about this. I mean, water obviously is a precious commodity here, and we're talking about a development that is probably going to be, you know, targeted at a, you know, I mean, it's not necessarily inner city type of housing. Obviously, we're talking about nicer housing, possibly people moving out there from, you know, parts of Albuquerque, but also attracting folks from out of state. So it's an additional, you know, usage factor. And, you know, the opponents also are concerned about the infrastructure side of it.
That's right.
You know, along with water use, there's infrastructure for water and utilities, which, you know, begs the question about who's going to pay for that stuff. And usually with a development like this, there's a mechanism called a TID, a tax increment development district, that's been used for several of these kinds of developments. Most recently, I can remember SunCal back in 2008, 2009 tried to get a TID approved and failed because there was so much concern about the infrastructure costs. And the fact that with a TID, what happens is you create a district, basically everybody that's within that district, all the businesses that are in there, they all are, their gross receipts goes back to that district. And so all the infrastructure gets paid out of those gross receipts. That means basically additional infrastructure or additional businesses that come in aren't part of the larger pool of Bernalillo County.
Right.
And so you're essentially saying, yeah, we're for economic development, but we're not going to be able to take advantage of that additional economic development to help the current services that Bernalillo County has.
So you brought up, Stephen, Laura just brought up something I wanted to get at as well. This is a zero-sum game here, it seems to me. Laura mentioned there's a possibility of people moving out from the old city of Albuquerque in years down the road. We're projected flat on our population growth at the way we've been trending. No, folks, it's like, where are these 90,000 going to come from? My fundamental question is something going to die in Albuquerque proper for this thing to thrive? Do you know what I mean? If we're thinking 20, 30 years down the road.
I think it won't develop. I mean, basically, if the demand isn't there, they're not going to build the houses.
Okay.
Just like Mesa del Sol hasn't developed. And Mesa del Sol, by the way, may develop. You know, the infrastructure's there, it may go. But they're not, these developers have their heads screwed on right. They're not going to start building homes when there's no demand.
Sure.
But, you know, one thing I do question, Laura, is this whole water issue. I mean, per capita water use doesn't change depending on where you live. So unless you're saying this development is going to bring in people from out of state, which I don't see. Right. I don't see how the per capita water usage is really going to change, even though you're quite right. That's what the objectors are saying. I don't
think it's the
quite get that.
infrastructure that people
Yeah,
are concerned about.
infrastructure.
Needing to get the infrastructure out there for water delivery is a huge.
Existing people, existing homeowners, roads, sewer, water, we're all better off if this thing doesn't happen.
Right.
You know, one
That's
of
the bottom
things-
line.
One of the things that's really interesting about this is the discussion on jobs and economic development.
Right. That's
You know,
right.
And I think Dan's right. You know, you have to have clawbacks. You need to have a very detailed agreement, which I think is the reason that the county commission delayed this, because the county attorney said, we're still talking about this development agreement that hopefully includes some of those details. But one of the important ratios that I read about was, they're talking, Santa Elena developers are talking about a 2-to-1 ratio of jobs to rooftops. So basically 2 jobs for every home. That's really ambitious for Albuquerque, and it's really different from what you see on the west side of Albuquerque, which is right now about 0.56 jobs for every rooftop. So we're really seeing a shortage of jobs on the west side in particular.
Well, that
They're
begs the
coming in-
question: Are these folks seeing everything with rose-colored glasses out there, Dan? I mean, I hear Laura's point. We had some of the folks from Santa Elena here for a discussion about 60 days ago. Somebody mentioned that same thing. That's an aggressive number. Are we seeing this thing correctly? That's my
Well,
fundamental
but
question.
here's what I say, Gene. I don't think it's up to us to see it correctly. I think what we should do is stop saying to these folks, well, we want you to recalculate your numbers. If they're aggressive at 2-to-1, you put clawbacks in that say that.
Okay.
You know, these guys, last time I checked, Santa Elena is not a nonprofit. So, you know, kind of like Steve was saying, they're not going to run out there and build 8,000 homes and hope they sell.
Right.
They're going to have a very strategic plan into doing this. One of the things we have to remember, though, is for these entities, there's a ton of work that goes into getting approvals and getting land and getting water and getting infrastructure, like Laura said. The question really is that the direction we want to grow? Is that where we want to go? Do we want to do it right now? When I believe there's lots of things that need to be done inside, but I think
Inside this
the
Albuquerque proper,
Albuquerque,
yeah.
Rio Rancho.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's not being taken into effect is the more that it's building on the west side, the fact that it's now tapping into Rio Rancho resources,
That's right.
and they're not getting anything out of these things. They're tapping into Rio Rancho water, Rio Rancho roads, they're coming into Rio Rancho schools. And yet those entities that are in Bernalillo County that are not considered part of Rio Rancho Sandoval County, there's no money coming back that's really affecting the schools. And you talk to the people in Rio Rancho where I live, one of the things, the Rust Hospital, you look at all these things that are being built right there on the edge that are bringing all these people in from Albuquerque. They like having the gross receipts money,
Sure.
but at the end of the day, a lot of that money is not coming in to help with the infrastructure, more traffic, more roads that are needed, wider roads, things that need to be done. So I think there's a real balance here. I would hope before this is done, the Bernalillo County Commission and the Sandoval County Commission are talking, because we're not going to get any of this stuff fixed if these two neighbors don't figure out how to work together.
That's a good point there. Up next, why some business leaders here in Albuquerque have agreed to work together to reduce water use and carbon emissions.